protector of the school district's assets.
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board while respecting the privacy of students and employees.
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board while respecting the privacy of students and employees.
I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting.
I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at the public board meeting.
I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
As part of the Board of Education, I shall accept responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of students in the school district.
As part of the Board of Education, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of students in the school district.
I shall foster with the board extensive participation in the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Batavia Public School District 101.
I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Batavia Public School District 101.
I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework.
I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework.
I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law.
I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement in all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law.
I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community school or schools to advance the vision for Batavia Public School District 101.
I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students in our community school or schools to advance the vision for Batavia Public School District 101.
And finally, I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
And finally, I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision of the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
All right, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And we're also very excited to welcome our new student ambassador tonight. So you have your own oath of office. Joe, if you want to step up.
Hello, Joe. Hello. How you doing? Not too bad. Ready to take your oath?
Yep.
I, Joseph Caltagirone, do solemnly affirm
I, Joseph Caltagirone, do solemnly affirm
that I will faithfully discharge the duties of student ambassador
that I will faithfully discharge the duties of student ambassador
of the Board of Education of Batavia Community Unit School District 101, of the Board of Education
of the Board of Education
of Batavia Community Unit School District 101,
of Batavia Community School District Unit
101, in accordance with the policies of the Board of Education.
in accordance with the policies of the Board of Education.
I further affirm that
I
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion
by myself
by myself
and board members
and board members
and others who seek a hearing before the board.
and others who seek hearing before the board.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
All right, Olivia, you're our senior ambassador now. You ready for that? Take Joe under your wing.
Yeah, I think I am.
The next item on our agenda is public comments. We have been working on our public comment policy, so I'm just going to go over it in a little bit more detail than normal. I'd like to welcome everyone to the meeting of the Board of Education. We ask that if anyone wishes to address the board, that you see our recording secretary, Kathy, for one of our pink forms. You put your name and address on the form because we're required by state law to keep a detailed set of minutes for our meetings. We highly recognize the value of active community participation, and we appreciate everyone attending the meeting. We always invite members of the public to share in our commitment to maintaining a respectful atmosphere at our meetings, and we request that anyone wishing to address the board keep the following guidelines in mind. In general, the board doesn't answer questions or engage in dialogue during public comment. It doesn't mean that we don't take your concerns seriously. If you have specific questions or would like to further engage with the district, you may submit your questions using the link on the website, and the appropriate staff member will communicate with you. Each person will have up to 3 minutes to address the board during public comments, and we always ask that speakers conduct themselves with civility and respect toward others. Comments concerning individual staff members or students are not appropriate, and the use of individual names or identifiable characteristics are prohibited. Tonight also, there's 2 opportunities for the public to address the board. General comments will be heard at this time, and then we'll have a public hearing about the budget, and there will be a chance for public comment specific to the budget later on in the agenda. And I have one. Did anyone else want to public comment tonight? All right, then I would like to invite Jill Hall to the table. Oh, please do.
My name is Jill Hall, and I live at 324 Hamlet in Batavia. I am here to speak to you tonight not as a mom, taxpayer, or fellow school professional, which I am. I came here to speak to you as an advocate for children, for their parents, to bring widespread attention to an ugly policy at RMS. During locker move-in day, a widely hyped BPS 101 event, students with outstanding tuition fees are not allowed to participate and are told by RMS staff that it is district policy that they may not have their team schedule or locker information until fees are paid or a payment plan is arranged. I want this policy ended permanently and immediately. You must stop it for the mental health and well-being of the students who are excluded, as well as their family and friends. I'm here to put a face on the situation. This is a photo of my daughter's locker move-in day. She was turned away. She had her picture taken, yes, for the school photos, but not by her locker, not with her friends, not with other kids in the background that may have become her friends, not goofing around and laughing over shared move-in day secrets, not being the ambassador for underclassmen that she was elected for, not meeting those incoming 6th graders that she led around and told how much better middle school was than elementary school. None of those things transpired that day because her parents owed money. I am here to demand that our students are no longer allowed to be treated as second class. You see, another caveat of this district policy is that all schedules, regardless of fee status, will be released on the Friday following locker move-in. Adolescence is a challenge in itself. What is an adolescent to think when their own school tells them they aren't good enough today, but maybe they will be on Friday? You aren't good enough coming through the front door, maybe you can just come around the side. This isn't your seat here, we have one for you over there. Those of us who are up to date can participate, the rest of you have to wait. I am here to bring awareness to those parents that don't know this goes on, and for those who think, as I once did, that they are the only ones who share this shame. I want this on the record. This should be discussed openly, without shame or judgment, but it isn't. Those who pay their fees on August 1st or at any time before locker move-in would never know. There's no way for them to know. Many of them would be appalled that this has gone on and would also ask for this to cease. I have friends that don't know and would probably offer to help in any way I needed, but that's not the point. I don't need help. We pay our tuition fees on the payment plan every year for the last 10 years. But my daughter and many other sons and daughters got turned away because their parents owed money. I'm here to get acknowledgement by the district that this has, excuse me, gone on in the past and will end tonight at this very meeting. Our communications person should inform the stakeholders of the situation, as was done with the Pearson security breach, make the district's apology, assure all students and parents that this policy has been removed, and no one will be shamed in this way ever again. Thank you. If you'd like to ask me questions, I am here.
I don't think we have any questions, but I would like to assure you that there was an error of the day at Rotolo.
This is not a single day event.
Rotolo was the only school this happened at, and I'm not trying to argue with you. Rotolo was the only school it was happened at, and we have taken care of it.
It won't happen again.
And I want to personally say that when we were contacted, and I do apologize on behalf of this board, and when we received the communication immediately, we brought it to the attention that it needed to be brought to. I am really sorry that this happened.
I can tell
And I
you,
can assure you that it will not happen again by this board.
I can tell you this letter is 5 years in waiting.
Well, I'm glad you brought it to our attention, and it will be taken care of, and I apologize.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to invite Todd Swanson.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Just a couple of things to get us started as our back to school. First off, I'd like to welcome Craig to the board, and on behalf of the Batavia Education Association, looking forward to strike a relationship with you as we work together. And I was looking at some of the other people that have gone through the process. I was kind of thinking Craig kind of missed out a little bit, because most board members, like if they're running for election, they kind of come to the BEA and we have some, dialogue with them. So I may need to get some extra dialogue with Craig on some things. But welcome to you. And Joe, welcome to you. And I also have to give a shout out to our cameraman, because Charlie was a former student of mine, so he's doing an awesome job too. So welcome everybody to a new school year. As far as board things that I have on my agenda, I know one thing we talked about last spring was that this summer I hope that we could get together and kind of talk about the role of like building liaison and how we can strengthen that. And Kathy and I talked over the summer that you guys were going through some retreats and having some dialogue amongst yourselves about what that would look like. So we kind of held off over any summer meeting, but I really like to move forward with that this fall, where we can sit down with each other and have some sort of idea exchanges about how the BEA can help with that, and how you guys as board members can have some sort of relationships in the buildings where we can foster those relationships together. So that's a really big goal of mine for this fall. So look forward to some sort of communication from me, and we can go have a coffee or go somewhere and have those talks. And the other thing too, just to start off with at this beginning of the school year, one of our district learning priorities is on personalized learning. And I just wanted to make you all aware that at the very first week of August, there was over 140 elementary teachers that gave up their time to take on and learn about this new personalized learning, the district priority, in a training that was held at the middle school. And that just speaks volumes for the partnership that we all have, and believe in the strength of we're always learning and always growing, not only the kids, but only as teachers in the district as well. And capitalizing on kids' strengths and interests to help promote their learning is one of the big priorities that we're looking forward to bringing into our classrooms this year, and spread that word throughout the rest of the district. So those are just a couple of things to bring to your attention. And again, it was a fantastic year last year. It was my first year as president, and I'm looking to build on those experiences again this year. So thank you guys for all your support, and hope the partnership just continues to grow and flourish. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Todd. All right, committee updates. I'm not sure how many committees have met since over the summer. It's a little slower. So does anyone?
Are you going to do student masters?
Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. I was so excited. We swore Joe in, and then I just forgot.
Thanks for speaking up too.
Yeah, you're gonna be like, that's in trouble.
Keep her on her toes.
I didn't know if it was a new schedule.
I just got all excited.
Okay, so this year, we're gonna do something a little bit different. I made a slide because I feel like it would be helpful, or not helpful, but interesting to see pictures of what we're talking about. There's not that many right now because nothing really has happened, because we've only been back to school for a week. But as the school year progresses, there will be more pictures so you can see what's happening. So first thing, on the 13th, there was Frosh Fest, which is, as I'm sure you all know, it's an opportunity for the incoming freshmen to come to the school, learn about high school, walk through their schedules. And it was really successful. All the freshmen, I think it really helped them on their first day of school. They knew where they were going, they knew how to get around, and now they have upperclassmen that they can talk to or reach out to if they ever have any questions. We do link up lunches throughout the school year, and we help them study for their midterms and their finals, so that was Frosh Fest.
The first day of school was last Wednesday, the 14th, and it went swimmingly. I haven't seen any lost freshmen, so that's a great sign. So that went well. The corn boil is this Friday, the 23rd. The boosters event. There's going to be marching band performance, and there will be Bulldogs merchandise and clothing for sale. The 29th is going to be the movie night on the turf. It starts at 8 p.m. and we will be shown on the turf. And on the 31st, the first home football game will be played against East St. Louis. Tough match, so come out and support the football team.
And then on the 15th is Paint the Town, which is the start of all the homecoming festivities. Homecoming this year, the theme is music. We're very excited. Music was very highly demanded by basically everybody that I talked to. So we're doing Paint the Town. We've started as student council to reach out to businesses and to get that going. And then we have Class Olympics on that Monday. And then obviously that's Spirit Week. We're still finalizing Spirit Week, but it's gonna be the same old, the Color Wars, the Theme Day, America Day. It's gonna be really fun. And then we have the Homecoming Parade on that Wednesday. And then on Friday, we're gonna have an all-school assembly. And then on the 21st is the dance, which everyone is very excited for. It came fast this year because it's generally in October, but September, it's like right away. But yeah, definitely gets everybody in the school spirit.
So what's your movie?
The movie is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Oh God. Classic, everyone loves it. PG, can't go wrong.
Somehow that on the turf just seems strange.
That's a great choice.
Yeah. Awesome, well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for the slide.
School.
Good luck.
All right.
Thank you. You guys are done.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Go do your homework. I bet you have it already.
Pardon?
So go do your homework. You probably have some already.
Yeah.
All right, now let's try committee updates. Does anybody have a committee meeting they want to share about?
The only thing is you can get your Hall of Honor tickets for, I gotta look up there, oh, it disappeared. I forgot what date it is. 18th, 19th? Thursday?
The event is Thursday, the 19th.
19th. Okay, so that's all for that I have.
Yeah, and I think we've got Craig, he's going to be taking on some committees, we've moved some people around, so next meeting, be prepared for some really exciting reports.
Yeah, FP meets Thursdays.
Okay. Yeah, I think we have a lot of committees starting to meet this week. The next item on our agenda is our consent agenda, which is an opportunity for us to consider all of our routine business items. They are all laid out in the board book. So, Dr. Newkirk, for taking us through the consent agenda tonight?
Sure, we have a number of meeting minute approvals, including the regular session on July 23rd, the special meeting on August 6th, and the closed session minutes of August 6th. In addition, we also have the August 15th special meeting minutes to approve as well. 6.5 is the personnel report. As you can see from the personnel report, we have a lot of staff movement in the last month before the start of school. 6.6 is a regular item of our payroll and bills. 6.7 is a large donation by the Dunham Fund to the Batavia Fine Arts Center. And then 6.8, periodically the closed session minutes are reviewed, and the recommendation is to keep these closed. And then 6.9 is the approval of the consent agenda.
All right, are there any items on the consent agenda tonight for clarification or removal? All right, they're all pretty straightforward. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Lowe, second by Locke. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda passes. Dr. Hitchens will take us through our reports.
The first report is the monthly FOIA report, where we report all of the FOIAs that we responded to in the past month. The first one is a little unique in that it was one FOIA request that was denied, which means we had records that were not turned over, but then as soon as those records, they were draft notes that were used in the, as you could see, in the vacancy application process, and once we made the selection, then we made those public and granted that request. And then you could see the rest of the FOIA responses as well. So everybody received their response. Next is the treasurer's report. These are the reports that are put here for your monitoring purposes. For monitoring purposes, they don't require a vote, but Tony's always happy to answer any questions that you have about the treasurer's reports. He is your treasurer. And then also in the reports section tonight is the reports section does not require a vote, and this is the public hearing for the budget. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathy.
All right, so tonight we're going to open our public hearing regarding the fiscal year 20 budget. We'll begin the hearing with a brief presentation from Chief Financial Officer Tony Lacey. After he has a chance to present all the information, then we're happy to entertain public comments. So turn it over to Tony.
Thank you. You may recall that we placed a tentative budget on display in July, so that has been available online and to anybody who happens to show up here at the administrative offices to review. Significant changes since that last draft. We're still under the tentative draft that we're sharing here tonight is indeed tentative, and it will continue to change, and it has changed since last you saw it. Major components of this budget that should be noted when you read this document are on that first page with the notice. And in particular is that the salary amounts in the budget right now for teachers are incomplete. So we're still bargaining with the VA. In fact, you might have heard, and this was released, I think today, via press release, that we reached a tentative agreement with the VEA. And while we're not yet ready to discuss the particulars of that agreement, it hasn't been ratified by the membership, and it will be presented to the board for their approval. Though that is forthcoming. But that information about that tentative agreement certainly isn't in this budget yet. We haven't had time to integrate that. But we believe that we will, in all likelihood, by the 24th of September. So those amounts are going to go up quite dramatically, and we'll talk about that a little bit. One thing that you should also note too is that what you saw last month in terms of revenues and expenditures has gone up. We're in the process of integrating revolving accounts and student activity accounts into regular district accounts. They used to be reported separately and kept tracked separately. And there's a new rule through the GASB 84 is what it's called, and GASB stands for the Governmental Accounting and Standards Board. They issued a ruling that basically says that student activity accounts have to be reported in with regular accounts because they are not maybe completely under the district's control, but they're influenced by the district's control, and so to have proper control over how that money is spent and accounted for, it's best to have that integrated into the district's books. So that means that we have to budget for it in our regular budget and all sorts of things, and we're in the process of doing that. And that hasn't been fully done with this budget document. As you notice, there's a lot of details provided in this budget document, and the only way that we can provide this level of detail with many iterations is to automate the process. Unfortunately, that automation also holds us back in some regards. We want to make simple changes. We have to change things in literally hundreds of places, and it doesn't make sense to do that all the time. So I would appreciate your patience as we bake these things in. By the time we get to the final draft, it will be accurate, but these numbers are being inflated from the prior year because we're including these student activity accounts, revolving accounts, and we're also including our self-insurance fund as well. So it makes it look like our revenues and our expenditures are higher than they are relative to the prior year because they weren't included in the prior year's budget or in the prior year's actuals. And so there's about a 2% increase. So what you see here on this first page for quick facts, we're saying that total revenues are increasing by 4%. Well, in actuality, if you cut out the revenue or the student activity accounts and revolving accounts, the increase is close to 2%. And the same thing for expenditures. So just keep that in mind. It'll be a little bit more clear when we get to September. In fact, I anticipate that some of those monies will go down a little bit because of the way that we're accounting for things right now. We're actually double counting revenues in our self-insurance fund, just the way the software is working for us. We have to make some procedural changes so that we can bake it in properly. So again, I appreciate your patience in that regard. The other thing that you should note too is that all the prior year amounts that are reported here are unaudited and they're unofficial, and they won't be official until the auditors complete their report in the annual reporting requirements that come forth usually in October through December of each year. So keep an eye out for that. Total summary looks like when we are looking at our revenues, we can expect about 99 million. And if we exclude our on-behalf payments, and as a reminder, on-behalf payments are amounts that are paid and received by the state of Illinois for pension liabilities. We have to report them in our official budget, but we don't actually see that money. It doesn't come to us directly. We don't pay it directly. It literally passes through the state on our behalf. That's $27 million this year. So officially our budget is $27 million higher, $126 million in revenues, and a similar amount in expenditures. The most important number to look at, however, is the difference between those revenues and expenditures, which right now is about $3 million. And as I noted earlier, we don't have the salaries and benefits in fully for the BEA, so that number is going to go down quite dramatically before the final version of this budget. Other notes here in terms of salary and benefits, employee benefits are going up, expected to be by a total of 6.8%, mostly because of our medical insurance premiums, which we anticipate to be 11% higher than last year. We've hired more staff. We've hired more staff, particularly in the areas of special education and also classroom teachers and social work. Our class sizes are good. They're the best, as far as I can tell, that they've ever been. We don't have any major class size issues, which is excellent. It's an excellent position to be in. We're also providing more support for students with special needs. That is much necessary because we've brought back a lot of students who are traditionally outplaced. And so that has increases for our FTE. Our student enrollment continues to decline. We expect it somewhere around 5688. We don't have official numbers yet, but we will in the next month. And our pupil to staffing ratio is improving to 8.6 pupils per employee. So those are the big highlights. And again, we'll still see some other significant changes between now and the time that this budget is adopted, particularly with regard to that surplus that's going to go down, as I noted, quite dramatically once we ratify with the BEA. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you or the community might have.
I have one. So I noticed that the capital projects budget has gone up $200,000 to $2 million from 1.8. And with our master plan in place or in the process of being developed, do we want to consider possibly increasing that even further, knowing that we have some really serious projects coming up, and obviously the more money taxpayers later for. So I just wanted to kind of throw it out to the board whether or not that's something that we wish to increase the size of, to start kind of.
It doesn't sound like you're directing that question toward me, but
yeah, I mean,
that's okay. I'm not that you're required to, but I would agree with you. And I would just throw out there too, to add on to that. I personally, and I think the Capital Projects Committee would also agree with that line of thinking. And as you might recall, we plan out our projects quite far ahead, and so that additional $200,000 and that $2 million is planned out at this point. If future increases would be warranted with all of the work that we have planned, and we would plan that out probably in 2021 and beyond. Maybe probably not in 2020 because it takes a while to get these projects underway, but there is very clear need for increasing the amount of money that is dedicated to capital projects.
And to be fair, that idea sprung from conversations that I've had with Tony previously and Mark and other capital improvement.
So Tony, we have two brand new members who've not gone through this entire process. Can you give us a really quick 2-second overview of how we go through this, when we would talk about that, when we would start looking at the 2021 budget?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I should have thought of that ahead of time. Just in terms of our process right now, We typically put, like, our fiscal year starts on July 1 and ends on June 30th. So, and here we are in August of the new fiscal year, and we're talking about adopting our budget. And as I always like to say, that's just how we roll in Illinois. This isn't a Batavia thing, this is just an Illinois thing. We're going to adopt our official budget a full quarter into the fiscal year. We try to follow that quickly with a 5-year financial forecast and a capital projects plan for the upcoming school year. So we essentially have decided all the projects that we can probably accomplish in terms of capital projects for fiscal year 20, which is underway. And that is, we've estimated to be about $2 million. But we'll have you see that capital plan refreshed for 2021 and beyond. And so what we look at is all the projects on a list, their priorities and how they happen to fit together. There's a little bit of fluidity with that because things don't always happen as we expect. There's some new things that might crop up. Maybe the condition of something is deteriorated, or maybe the condition of something is better than we might have expected, or maybe we just can't get all of these projects together in terms of bidding requirements and funding and logistics and those sorts of things as we might expect. But we tried to plan in the long term far more than we used to. It's a relatively new thing for us. And we're trying as best we can to get that integrated into our budget. So we're actually adopting the fiscal, or the capital plan for the successive fiscal year when we adopt the budget for the current. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting fairly close. So that's the general gist of things, unless there's anything I missed.
Just wanted you guys to kind of have an idea of what was coming up and how it's not as straightforward as when we're doing business run.
And I apologize, I'm making assumptions about what you might know, and if I use acronyms or if there's just something that you haven't heard before, I apologize.
That's okay.
It's not you, it's me. Don't be shy.
So you want us to bank more money in anticipation of projects?
I think he wants us to budget, like in future budgets, start looking
I
at.
just feel like if we bank it, we're just going to spend it on current projects.
Oh, I think there's just a rallying that we have this huge list of things we need to do, and the master plan will be swept into this continuing list of projects. So I feel like it's still all one idea. We just haven't added anything from the master plan yet.
Yeah, it's still.
Tony will do his magic and bring us this really consolidated plan that will then scoop into our budget, and it will be this very well thought out long-term plan.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I think
I've seen you in action, Tony.
yeah, with or without the master plan, we have projects out there, I think 2 new roofs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, several projects that are over $1 million each, and if we only have $2 million a year,
I understand.
so.
No, I get it.
As far as whether or not we would spend it in a given year, we prioritize everything in the capital projects committee based on need. And so if it gets spent in the current year, I would expect that it was necessary.
No,
I personally would rather wait myself. I mean, it's gone from, when we started this, 1.5 million, and it's creeped up, which I don't have a problem, we gotta fix something. But we have a contract right now that's coming up. We have a few other things. I'd rather see where all the money's gonna finally lay down before we start adding any more to it. I think now going up to, from 1.8 to 2 million, okay, I can live with that, but I'd rather wait and see. That's my opinion on it.
Well, and
So I wouldn't be in favor of adding anything right now.
And I think, again, really, John, the process should be that it's when we're looking at our 2021 budget and looking long-term from there. So I would tend to agree with you. That doesn't mean that we might not have discussions throughout the year if there are things we can move up because, depending on how everything rolls out. But I would agree in terms of long-term. I don't feel like we're ready to talk about that yet until we're looking at our 2021 to make that commitment. But it's for sure something I think we should talk about.
Yeah, my only thing is I think if the longer we put it off, the more risk that we have of not having the money when we need it. So
How much what are you thinking?
I mean, you know, it depends on what we have available, and obviously the points that John brought up are very valid. We need to find out what the contract is and whatnot, and we will know that hopefully by next month. But once we know what is available, I think the more we can put in there, the better we will be, because we don't want to have to use the R word. Go to the community for a referendum if we can avoid it. So I prefer
The other factor involved in this too those who've been on the board for a long time know this, and those who are might not, but for the better part of 30 years, if not longer, the district each year had to use what are called tax anticipation warrants. Essentially, we have to borrow money to make payroll for a few months before property taxes came in, because we run out of cash. And last year was the first year that we didn't have to do that. But it was barely, it was this close. It was even closer than we thought it would be. And so it would help that issue if we had a little bit more money in terms of fund balance in the bank to kind of cushion those cash flow needs. And so that is another factor to be considered in making those decisions. I don't disagree with Chris at all, but that is a factor in the decision making.
All right, any other questions for Tony?
One thing I'd like to add that I forgot is that when we adopt the budget, we're setting what we anticipate in terms of revenues for the year. And it's one of the requirements of the annual levy. And we'll bring the levy to you likely in November or December of this year. And so what oftentimes board members might not realize is that when they're adopting the budget, they're also setting the parameters of the levy. So if you're concerned about the property tax levy, now and between now and September is the time to have that conversation, because once we adopt the budget and we decide to change one of our revenue streams, it will have dramatic impacts on our annual budget, if that were to be the case. Of course, we never recommend that we make that adjustment, because typically you lose that cash forever and the ability to levy it. So, but I just want to make sure that when you adopt the budget, you know what you're doing with regard to the implications of the levy itself.
Great. Any other questions? And I would like to ask if there's anyone here who'd like to address or make comments on the budget tonight. All right. Then that will conclude our public hearing regarding the fiscal year 20 budget. Action on the budget will be taken at a future meeting of the Board of Education. And I think you've answered all of our questions? Yes? Board? All right. Some of us are more excited about the budget than others.
Well,
I'm still reading it.
It's really long. So those were all of our reports tonight. We only have one item on the agenda for action, and that is a policy tonight. So I will have Dr. Hitchens take us through that.
Sure, and there's no urgency. I know a couple, two of the board members at least talked to me about like maybe a few more changes to some of these policies. So in the policy report, the board sets policy and has to vote on policies, and there's 2 of them on here, and this is the second month in a row that they've been on here. But in our July meeting, we didn't have the full board at the time, so we're happy to have a conversation tonight about those 2 policies. Also tonight, let's talk about what this board report is going to look like. So we'll do those 2 policies, which actually require a vote. If we're not ready to vote, we can always wait till next time. Then there's 4 procedures that are listed. One of them is related to the policy that we're talking about, but the other 2 are one-offs. So we do get press updates where we have an organization that looks through all of the new legislation and make sure that our policy is compliant. So there were some changes to some of the communicable and infectious diseases, some changes to some of the regulations there. And that's an exhibit and a procedure that if you had any questions, we could answer them, but we're just following what press told us to do, which is following the changes to the law. So those 2, I wouldn't imagine that you would have any discussion about, but you could feel free to ask that. So then we do have these 2 policies to talk about, but if we want to put this in the context of our board workshop back in June, before we had Craig, we did talk about our communications, the board communications, and some of our board agreements, and we want to review many of those things tonight. And so let's start off with the 2 policies, and then we're going to jump to those 4 documents that we talked about at our June workshop. So the first policy we wanted to talk about is 2140. This one, it has some press updates, and then we did make it a little bit homegrown here. If you look at the bottom, the last line in this policy, we did adjust it for our own local preference, a little bit further down there, where we do, press would not recommend that any board member reply to one member of the public. So if somebody emails the board, that would be on administration to reply, because a board member does not speak for the entire board. But in Batavia, we do want people to know how much you're listening and caring, so you have authorized the president to reply on behalf of the board just to say, we've got your email, here's where you can access more information, here's who you can talk to. So not giving her opinion to the person, but just being there to let the public know that you heard, and here's who you should talk to, or the meeting you should come to, or the document you should look at. So any questions about that policy? I don't think anybody had any questions about that one. So let's move on to the next one, which was the board, the public participation at a school board meeting. We do take the press recommendation and change it. First of all, the press recommendation, I think is more, it's not as clear as ours, but I did have a couple board members that suggested that we can make this even more clear. So let's start with number 2 there. When we have public participation, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes, but if they ask us in advance, they can be allowed to speak for more than 3 minutes if they ask for it in advance, or if they're representing a group. So one of the board members had a suggestion to say, why don't we cap that as well, and tell people what the cap would be. So would you like to put a 5-minute cap was the suggestion?
Yeah,
if they ask in advance.
That doesn't, it doesn't say what the unusual circumstance is, who makes this determination.
So in the past, when we've had people request this, the most common time that this happens is if somebody says they're coming in and speaking for a group. So rather than having 4 or 5 individuals speak, we've given one person time. And I think the only reason why we haven't capped it before is because depending on the topic and how many people they were speaking for, we've been a little bit flexible.
Sure.
But I'm completely amenable to putting a 5-minute cap, and there's very few things that could not be communicated, I think, in that time frame.
The only thing I also said, and part of it was my discussion, was it should be in advance, so we should know ahead of time, not the day of like today, come in and say, I need the cap. If they can email somebody or so on.
I think
because if we had a whole list, and then it'll take me to 3A for another part, but the cap part, I think, is, I like to hear everybody speak, but I think as long as we know ahead of time, and I don't think it's going to happen a lot.
Although we have been contacted the day of, I agree, not right when you're walking into the meeting, but we've had people.
If we can have it in advance of some sort.
So that when we get to the meeting, we're prepared.
So define unusual circumstances, and who's going to make the decision that this is an unusual circumstance?
In the past, it's been Lisa and I.
Okay.
And so, and it's been something
So
where.
what's an example?
Like if somebody wants to speak on behalf of 4 or 5 people. That's been one. I think that's the only time we've ever granted excess time.
So,
But
exactly, instead of having, they usually say, I have 6 people that want to come and speak, but I can speak for them if I could have some extra minutes.
I think 5 minutes might be a little too short, only because if they are speaking for 5 different people, that would be 15 minutes worth of time if we had to listen to them individually. And if for some reason that one spokesman for the group feels like they were cut off after 5 minutes, then I think we might be asking for trouble.
Yeah, then they're just
I mean, so
let their
I just have an issue with what they're going to come and speak about, because I don't want to hear bad stuff for more than 5 minutes. If they're coming to complain about children, or they're going to come and say something that's really, I don't want to hear for 5 minutes.
But a lot of times too, when we have a big group and they're talking on it, it's just repetitive stuff.
Right, that's why.
You know, so I think if you put a cap on it, then they can make it concise and put it all together.
yeah, I'd rather have 10 minutes on one topic than 20 people at 3 minutes each.
I think that if we capped it at 5 minutes, I mean, we've never been draconian.
No.
We try to remind people that, you know, if there's something new or something extra you want to add, but when they hit the time limit, maybe a little longer, usually we, you know, is there something extra you'd like to add? Is there a way you could summarize all your points? And I think that putting a time in to sort of guide us, but not being so draconian about, like.
Can we just put a suggested cap and not make it a hard cap? I mean, in that way, it gives us flexibility. In that way, if a new board comes in and is not as flexible as we are.
Oh, they could change the policy.
I can't believe I'm going to say this. It should be good. It should be good. It's just so not like me. I think everybody should be heard.
Well, we don't ever not. We're just saying if you would like to, like, we like to give people the opportunity, and often it's a group of people.
Oh, I
and
totally understand.
we like to give them the chance to like summarize and speak for a group.
No, but if somebody comes in, give me an example of when we've ever had somebody come and represent an entire group. I can't.
Many times when we've had parents that are upset about class size,
But
we've had people talk about the turf.
But that's kind of true, because we've had one person who says they're representing a group, but then we have several people following.
Oh, for sure, but
So I guess I'm saying is like, there's really no way to control it. So if we have somebody who says, I'm representing a group, and they're gonna come up here and speak for 5 to 10 minutes.
They're speaking for it, don't they?
But then we've had that happen in the past.
They've
where-
always told us in the past.
Right, but then you still have other people coming up following, I'm talking about the same subject.
True, but
So do
then
we really need to cap it at more than, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but we can't stop people from coming up here and talking.
yeah, and
So
I-
we're gonna have
Right.
one person coming up to representing the group to talk for 5 to 10 minutes, but that's not gonna stop the other people who don't wanna be part of the group.
So my humble opinion is if someone is representing a group and they come acting as a representative of a group, they name the people as if they would be filling out the form themselves, and they get up to 5 minutes, because frankly, if they're representing a group, they need to be succinct in their statements. If they feel that they can't get enough of their time across, they have every right to not represent themselves as a part of a group and come as a single individual to get their 3 minutes. It's just people being respectful of everybody's time. So that's why I think you can limit it to a group statement with 5 minutes, because there is a recourse if people feel that that's not enough time for them to organize their thoughts in advance to hold to the 3 minutes per individual, in my opinion.
I also think if we're going to let people speak, as we're discussing for a group of people, it should be, the form should be amended to say, I'm speaking for this group of, this organization and these people, so it's documented that.
So we know.
I like that, because we've done it
who's
informally in the past, but
Yeah.
doing
Right.
it formally
No.
is great.
Then it's on the
I think you're right.
On record.
And I think the addresses and everything else that you would
Who they're
have them as they're speaking individually.
I
I
like
just don't want people to feel like they're being stifled.
No,
Makes
right,
sense. And-
for sure.
But I also think that if someone's going to come here and say they're representing a group, they have to own that, and it has to be on record, to your point. Because someone could come in here and say that they were speaking on my behalf,
And they're not.
and they're not.
And I think that there have been very rare times where a member of the public representing, like, did the Depot Museum speak in public comment, or did they just ask for their own slot? Because I know we've had in the past.
It was public.
That was a public comment, wasn't it, when the Depot Museum came and spoke to us? And that's, I could see that kind of partnership.
Well, I was
We
just
might-
saying, that's an example of where it might go longer than 5 minutes.
Right, well, right.
own spot.
No, because they're not one of us. So we would have allowed them just to speak under public comment.
That's what I would think.
Yeah.
I guess my recommendation on that point is that if it's someone like an organization that is a part of the fabric of Batavia, Park District, Depot, Historic Society, your typical big groups, the other community groups, that would be a part of BPS partners, because then you're at least acknowledging that they're part of the community and they have but then they can speak a little bit longer if they need to, because then you also get a chance to talk to them in advance about what they're going to speak to, because then you're aware of what they're going to kind of talk about.
Is partners defined anywhere? Because when I hear a BPS partner, I think, Todd's group or the ambassadors. I don't necessarily think.
Fair enough.
That's
right or wrong.
isn't that? I don't think there's a problem with having, I mean, like, I don't think it's unusual. Don't they at City Council have, if somebody, a group wants to address them and they just go during public comment? Or
You
no?
can, or you can get yourself on the agenda.
You just
Okay.
request to be on the
Yeah.
agenda.
Okay, which we generally don't ever have outside business on the agenda because obviously.
Would that be a better option, to just give them a spot on the agenda
No.
during the public comments?
Nope.
I mean, because then we could just say, hey, this group gets 5 minutes, this group gets 10, depending on what.
But it's still going to be, I mean, again, how does this not handle that? Unusual circumstances, they're incredibly
No,
rare. It gives us the flexibility.
I'm in agreement with it, I just think you could cap the 5
Oh,
minutes.
for sure,
right
I
there.
agree.
I mean, We can't write a policy that covers literally everything that occurs. There's always exceptions to the rule. And, you know, board president and superintendent, in my opinion, need to be the ones acting as representatives of the
I think
committee
it
and the
needs to
board
be
to make that
specified.
decision.
You were the determinant.
And that's in other policies as well, so.
It usually states that.
Okay, so I will make some adjustments and bring it back. Number 2, specifically making sure people know how they get that permission, and it needs to be in advance of the meeting and up to 5 minutes. I'll bring that back for another meeting next month. But also let's talk about 3A. I had a couple people that said maybe we should be a little bit more specific about when we would limit it.
What were you thinking with that?
I brought it up because I did not want to cut anybody off, and last point was, or last one that we had was the issue at the middle school and music department, where we had many people come, and I found it to be okay to break it at, let's say, 30 or 45 minutes so that we could continue on with our meeting. And then at some point near the end of before our comments or the superintendent's comments, that we could open it up again if anybody wanted to finish up, if there was a big, and so everybody could speak instead of having an hour and a half right up front before we get into our business. So I just had a concern on that one and figured I didn't want to cut anybody off. I didn't want to make it shorter from 3 minutes to 2 minutes or 1 minute. I'd rather just keep that the same, but then maybe just add it at another future point in the agenda if something occurs that we know that's going to happen. So
I
that's.
hear that, John. The only thing that I liked about cutting it off is honestly, when we have a lot of people speaking on one topic, there's not new information. And so a lot of times people just want to share their feelings or their thoughts on it. And so when we shortened it to 2 minutes, there were no themes that were not covered, and more people had a chance to like chime in and share, which is I think good. I think sometimes when we're like, well, we're going to shove you to the end of the meeting, 5 people get to speak at the beginning, and then depending on what we have on the agenda, it might almost feel like we're stifling them because we're pushing them to the very end, and by that time people are like exhausted.
Well, if you know ahead of time that this could happen on a big topic, I think shortening it is wrong, because I think we need to be open to let everyone speak regardless. If we don't want to hear it all the time, the same thing over and over. I'm just saying that it should just be that time, and then if they know in advance, if we've got 50 people here, there's going to be a break at some point. And if you get here last, you're going to be at the end. So for me, that's how I would prefer this to read than anything else.
What do you guys think?
I agree with John that I think everybody should have the opportunity to speak. I also can empathize with if everybody's saying the same thing, it does get a little repetitive. However, I would side with John and say, all right, we'll pick it up at the end of the meeting. If you want your opportunity to speak, you should have your opportunity to speak.
I would argue that I totally agree. I'm just saying that 2 minutes is actually ample time to make a lot of points. Lets so many more people speak during that time at the beginning when everybody still has energy. And for sure would allow people, we would continue to allow people to speak at the end of the meeting if we weren't able to get through everyone. But this, I feel like, allows more people to speak, and they would still know up front. I mean, our policy has always said that we could shorten the time. This is not shockingly different than what our policy currently said.
I think we could add something about that we'll make an attempt to reopen the public comments at the end if everybody who signed up hasn't been heard. So that's not in our public comment, but I do hear that you guys want to hear everyone. So we would make an attempt to reopen the public comment of the people who signed up later in the meeting if it has to get cut off. So I could add that, and I guess the only decision would be, is the philosophy to shorten the time to get the maximum number of people speaking at the front end of the meeting, or is it to give everybody 3 minutes and then push more people at the end? So that would be the decision.
So that's saying that anybody can walk in and add a pink slip.
at any time.
During that
No,
first,
they have to
when
sign
we
up
open
just like we
public
always
comment.
do.
Yep, when we open public
That's no
comment at the
different.
beginning.
It's just a question of, we're gonna set 45 minutes aside because we know we have so many people. Anyone who didn't get a chance to speak, we'll pull the rest of the pink slips at the end of the meeting. The question that we're saying is, I think everyone agreed that we're gonna, or there was a lot of agreement to that, but the question was, do we want to do that? And do we want to, in certain times, have a chance to shorten the time so more people can speak before we continue?
We don't ever set a time limit on any of the subjects that we have. So anything on our agenda is not set to a time limit. So why would we set this to a time limit? Why would we have people come and publicly comment and then cut them off after 45 minutes and then why can't we just get it? Why do we have to do it twice?
I guess.
I mean, we're going to hear them all anyway, but
I
what
have
I'm
a
saying is
similar
why
question.
wouldn't we?
If we're gonna hear them all anyway.
Yeah, I don't
give them
understand
the
why we have
same
to do
amount
it
of
at the
time. Why
end.
not just let them hear at the beginning and then we move on with our
Yeah,
business?
I guess I see what you're saying, but if everybody, we're agreeing that everybody gets the right to speak, we're not going to allow everyone to speak, let's just let them speak. And
So
then
if
when they're
it's not
done
on a
speaking.
topic that's on the board agenda, and let's say hypothetically, there's 5 hours of public comment, then you will not have been able to get to your actual board business in that business day.
But we're not going to get to the board, we're going to get to the board business, but we still got to go back and listen to
You
public
can
comment.
call a recess of a meeting, so if the meeting goes till midnight, then you can call a recess and resume it the next day without having to repost it if it came to that. But I just have a concern that the board has, like, you have to approve the payroll. There's things that have to get done. And this is your policy though, but that would be my opinion, that the board at some point has to start doing their business that evening. If it's 1 hour in, 2 hours in, whatever the time is, but I don't think we can let it go unlimited public comment because.
And then people can decide.
I think part of the
people can
rationale of that, if I
decide
may too, is that when everybody gets fatigued, they're not always making the best decisions, and oftentimes the board is faced with, on those very nights, some very difficult decisions, and if they've listened to several hours of public comment, especially repetitive public comment, they might not have the mental faculties to make the best decision.
Well, and I've also seen, arguing both sides of the argument, because I'm having a
Yeah,
discussion,
I see it.
is that there is also a tendency of culminating arguments where people start feeding on top of each other. Sometimes you just need a break to let people kind of reorganize their thoughts. It gives you as a board president to state, we would appreciate if you're going to come back up and speak. And we've heard a number of comments. We're taking everything to heart, but we don't need to necessarily hear it again. So if you have additional information you'd like us to have, please feel free to share that.
I think there's also the option to write down your comments and hand them in, and they get submitted.
Yeah.
That's something to keep in mind as an option. Another thing, I'm hearing a lot of themes about kind of repetitiveness, but we want everybody to have a chance to speak, but our meeting can't go till midnight. I think something we could consider is maybe taking the first 50, cap it at the amount of people or the amount of groups. Because after a certain amount, there's possibly no more information to be heard. That's another option that we could explore.
I think having that limit for where we cut it off in the policy is good so that people don't think we're discriminating against their group specifically. And we can say, all right, after 45 minutes of public comments, that's where we cut it off. We're going to continue it at the end of the meeting. We're going to do the rest of our business, but we're treating everybody fairly, and we have a place to point and say, we're doing this because this is our policy.
And the other thing is, you got to remember, if I recall correctly, the one that was at Grace McWayne, within the majority of the music, I think there was 1 or 2 people that spoke on something else. And it could have been, they could have been near the beginning or they could have been near the end, and you don't know if you're going to cut, and then they don't even have a chance to speak. So that's what I would be worried about. So I'd rather have it.
The number, John?
I'd rather just have it put in that, okay, we're going to go, 30, 45 minutes at the beginning, but we will still have an open later on for anybody with any, it could even be the same stuff. I'm not one to cut anybody off, and I don't want to change the minutes to shorten it. Just if we're going to use 3, then keep it at 3 for everything and go from there. If we're going to cap it with a group or something, and I brought that up, so I'm fine with that. But I'm fine with breaking it into 2 parts as long as everybody has and no one's saying that we're not listening or we don't care.
And nobody's surprised that we did it.
So that's my thought.
I
So
like
you'd
the
like
idea
the-
of having people heard in the beginning and then stopping it and having your meeting. And then if people truly want to be heard, they will stay till the end.
So how are you going to decide so how will it be decided who speaks first and then who has to stay through the entire
come,
It's
meeting?
first
always,
served.
yeah, it's always
Is that how
phone
it's gonna
number.
be?
Yeah, it's always phone
Yeah, we always put
Now-
the order that they come in.
Yeah,
Do
he
we-
does that for us.
Do we want to do any type of curating if we have 40 people who are speaking on one subject and one person who's speaking on some different subject, put them in the front of the line so they can leave?
No.
It's
No.
first come,
No.
first served.
Yeah.
All right.
If they come in and they sign up and go with the order, I wouldn't change any of that.
I mean,
Okay.
Because they can always put it into the public records if they don't want to stay, they can say, I still want this, here's my notes, and put it into the record.
the public.
Yeah,
And we've done, and that's been done before.
Right, I was gonna say that we've always offered that.
Right,
that's
and I would
one of the
say don't
options,
change
We would
that.
always remind people of that, but
Yep.
yeah.
Can put it in the
And
policy.
they can also come to a future meeting
Yeah,
if they felt
next
that they
month.
weren't given enough time or got lost in the message.
I guess the only thing I'm going to add, the things I heard about some past board meetings were, one, is there an ability to help the public that's coming to what might be a particularly contentious or discussion-heavy meeting, a length of time somewhat in advance, so that if someone's planning on a 3-minute talk, they show up and it's not now a 1-minute talk. That the length of time is based on the number of expected participants, and that the same thing, the board president and the superintendent will determine the length of time no less than 48 hours in advance or something like that. 'Cause, I mean, I can imagine with some things you do occasionally have surprises, but in a lot of times you know when you're going to probably get a large number of people coming. So.
But I would hate to prematurely cap what people have to say based upon what we think might hypothetically happen.
Right.
So I think
Well,
it's,
if you give people, I'm sorry to
No, no,
interrupt, so
okay.
go ahead. I guess my point is, if you give it a little time and you say, look, it turns out there's only 10, you can take your 3 minutes, that sort of thing, and maybe you get more time.
but the people who are upset about that wrote their statement ahead of time, so then we're asking them to kind of ad lib 1 more minute, which adds to an already long.
Touche.
Yeah.
Stress.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't want to confuse it more. Just keep the time.
So we're for sure all, I think there's a consensus that we would add something to the policy that says we would break after a certain amount of time and continue public comment at the end. So is the only lingering question as to whether or not we would keep in the, when necessary, we would shorten time.
But I'm hearing, I don't know anybody who's in favor of that anymore.
The shortening from 3
Right.
minutes down?
Except for
No.
me.
I don't like it.
Right, so
People
I'm
come
hearing
with
people want to
prepared
keep it
comments.
3,
Okay.
right? Am I hearing that? People want to keep 3 minutes? Right. Right, I will adjust this and bring it back for another reading next month.
Are we going to put anything in the policy that we will only go so many minutes, not the number of people? Like if there's so many, just to put it in there that if people read the policy, they'll say, okay, first set of open meeting time is only going to be 45 minutes or 30 minutes. So if I'm going to talk, I better get there and get my name on the list. Otherwise, I got to go in the second group. And that one can go as long as you want, I mean. But I'm just saying, should we put that in policy? That's the
So
question.
under 3A, since we're not shortening the time for each person to speak, we might shorten the cumulative amount of time for public comment. So I'll rewrite 3A.
And we can talk about it again.
Yeah,
Okay.
because we're not shortening the time for each person, but we might shorten the time for public comment if it is interfering with the board able to do their business in a timely manner.
The front end of public comment.
Correct. And then we'll reconvene at the end and allow people and remind people to put things in public record. Okay, I will bring that back for another shot next month. Then at the board workshop, we did talk about communication. So there was, based on that discussion, we took your feedback and we updated the Board of Education webpage on the website just to help. I think you guys had an interest. This is the bottom document, the stapled one in the packet that's in front of you. So this is what the board website looks like right now for board members. because you wanted to help the public understand what it is you do and what you don't do. So
The one where Craig Manning.
the one there, he got his picture taken, it's just not on the website yet.
Oh, awesome.
But, so if people come to you and say, oh, I need to change my child's teacher, or I don't know where to do this, then I think you do a nice job of helping them get the help that they need. But if they needed to know what it is that a board member does, we try to explain what it is that you do and how you can help them. And it might not be changing the menu at the cafeteria, but you can point them in the right direction if they had a concern. So that was one thing we talked about. That's on the bottom of your pile. Another thing that we talked about, the board has a group of agreements, and we hadn't updated them for 5 years. And during our workshop, we talked about what was working with those agreements and what wasn't. So Brad was our facilitator, and he took notes, and he just wanted to run over what he came up with as our new set of board agreements for your approval.
Sure. You are a team of 8, 7 board members and the superintendent. And what we know from research is really clear is that there are certain characteristics of effective teams. And one of those characteristics is that they have norms of behavior and that they comply and hold each other accountable to those norms. So the board has had these agreements for a number of years, but it's always good to refresh. And it was in our workshop, it was good to see that there's diversity of opinion and thinking, and people view the agreements a little bit differently. So we went through an exercise of defining what that agreement looks like, sounds like, and feels like to you as a member of this team. So there were a number of comments that were put together, and I just tried to synthesize those for each of the board agreements so that as people looked at those, they were able to kind of determine what does that board agreement look like in actuality. And this is probably something that the board will need to periodically go through again and again, because that will change over time as new people are added to the board. So you can see that the board members' agreements, that there are 2 to 3, sometimes 4 bullet points, and there's a little bit on the back of that page for you to take a look at. But the point is that they help the board members start to determine what this looks like, sounds like, and feels like in reality. But how is this team going to function its most effectively? So I'd happy to talk about any of them that you see there. That struck you.
The only one that wording I didn't like was the 3rd box down on the right side, 2nd bullet. Board members accept that all votes may not be unanimous, but the process is not about winning or losing. I do not like the wording, the process is not about winning or losing. I don't think that's necessary to be in there. I'd rather have something in the effect of unanimous, but we'll accept the outcome, or we'll accept the final outcome, or something changing other than winning or losing. I just personally do not like that.
Okay.
And I'm not faulting, I know you were putting it all together.
I think you're right, and I will take that feedback and make those changes, but I think that the spirit of that, maybe I can phrase it better, the spirit of that comment was, the board talks about, as a team, issues, not necessarily people, and it's really not a competition to get your idea heard, and that's the power of the collective, is that the Board of Education works together to bring out the best solutions. So I think that was the spirit of it, but I will definitely go back and tweak that.
No, I appreciate that, Brandon. That's the only thing I had from that. The rest was fine for me.
Other comments or questions about these agreements and their further clarification?
My only comment is very picky and very small. Where it says on the bottom one, it says board members do not talk to the press. I think it should be more broad, communicate. Written email is that sort of thing.
Okay.
Good point.
Good ones. I'm gonna do, no. All right, the next document that we talked about are the liaison and other positions. So the first thing we did was we talked about what the purpose of those liaison positions were, and so we landed on these 5 things. The first one is about visibility and just showing the community and all of the staff and the students how committed you are to this district. So that's one part of why you're a liaison or why you're in these groups, is to just show everybody how committed you are. The second reason that we have these is so that you could ensure fidelity of our processes. So we always say trust the process. We have, these great processes. We have stakeholder groups, we have advisory committees, and you sit on those as a way to just ensure that we're walking the walk. The third reason that we have these positions is to assist people in navigating the system. So what that means, we used to just say you're like a tour guide. So when you're at Jewel and somebody comes to you and has a concern, they might not have any idea where to bring that concern. We live it every day. Like, we know our systems. We know you start with your teacher, or you start with, if there's a transportation question, we know where to send people, but not everybody knows that. So your job would be to help assist people in navigating our system. The fourth thing is the monitoring and reinforcing your strategic objectives. So when you give direction or when we agree to our strategies as a board, that you would be monitoring those and getting out and about to making sure those are happening. And then the other reason we have these positions is every board member can't be at all of these meetings, and so just one of the things that we added to the board agenda were the committee updates at the beginning, where you would say, I was at this professional learning advisory committee meeting and here's what we talked about. Even if you weren't there, just being that liaison. Or if you're a liaison to a building, hey, did you guys know that Louise White has this coming up? So you would communicate on behalf of that group or that school to the rest of the board and just have a shout out at the meeting. So those are the reasons that we landed on for the reasons why those positions existed. Ideas for building liaisons. These didn't change from last time, but we're open to feedback. If you are a building liaison to a school, some ideas would be, if it's an elementary, you would attend a PTO meeting and introduce yourself. You could meet with the principal could give you a little tour. Sign up for their newsletters. If you're not getting their principal's newsletters, we can sign you up for that. And then you can report back to the board, like I said, during your board comments, talk about your school in your board comments. And then the second page is right behind that page in your packet would be the assignments for 2019-20. So what questions, comments do you have about these documents?
I have a question regarding liaison assignments, so other assignments. The IASB delegate?
Yes.
And student ambassador, are those coming off the list?
We didn't put them under other assignments, and I can't remember, the IASB delegate has always been Chris.
Wait, what do you mean, are they coming up?
Like, they're not on the team.
Nobody's assigned to them.
I don't think we've talked about them for this year. You had been our delegate in the past because you were very good at it, and student ambassadors were one where you and Chris can handle it. This year I assumed you would continue handling it, but it certainly wasn't hard to put it on our roster.
I think we called the chart collaborative.
So actually, one of the things that we had talked about previously, I think as a board, but it may have been in individual discussions. So sometimes we can't make a meeting and we might have somebody else go in our place. Do we want to actually codify that so that, hey, if you can't make a meeting, find out if somebody else can make it, so that the board stays informed, the committee feels like they're important still? And
I would ask the people at the table here that are in the advisory committees.
I feel like that would not be helpful, or there's too big of a learning curve for our bigger committees, I feel like, to just show up and kind of be able to catch what's going on. But I don't know about some of the other committees.
I would agree, because I filled in for Chris one time. He couldn't make a meeting and he asked me to go, and I was available. I said, sure. Thank goodness they weren't talking about a lot of stuff, so because it's just the fact that I'm just going in there blind. And yeah, okay, I'm a body, I'm listening, but I don't know what has happened previous. And for me then to report out is like, I wouldn't even know what to say. So I don't think it's necessary, because I think unless you know for sure you can't make, let's say, 70% of them, then I would say then don't be going on it, say remove me. And I understand, some people are working, you know. Some of us do have a little bit more flexibility because retired or something, you know. But I don't think it would be wise to just fill the chair,
Okay.
in my opinion on that.
I haven't been to enough of the other committee meetings to
Yeah.
know whether or not it'd be.
See, like
appropriate to be there.
Beefy's not.
Yeah, Thursday will be my first. So.
Like, nobody wants to go sit on, in like Beefy meeting,
Right,
that wouldn't
right.
be appropriate.
And BP's like a working, BP's
Yeah.
one of the working committees, so that's one where, like, you gotta be there every.
I mean, unless you want to fill in for me when I'm volunteering down at the, you know, the cornhole or something.
I'm already working the cornball.
Well, and a lot of them have overlap anyway, like Vic, there's two of us, BP, there's two of us. You know, I'm sure that may apply to other ones as well. So sometimes that just happens naturally.
Right.
The other question.
Although truly, Erin, I would argue that Sue's our board representative. I know you sit on that, but you're technically not board, not.
But if she missed, you could.
Yeah, that's true.
Right,
Right,
that's
true.
what,
Right.
yeah.
So,
And that would be what your purpose of saying that, Chris,
guess.
right? So you can
Yeah.
speak to it at the meeting?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so that you could bring feedback and the board stays informed and the person who missed it stays informed and all that.
Right,
process.
okay.
But if it's, yeah, I don't know how complicated the other committees get because I haven't sat on them. The other question that I was going to ask is, and I completely agree that the board president should assign all of the liaison positions, but would it be advantageous to present and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, does anybody have any feedback before making it official? The reason I say that is I know that I am the Grace McWayne liaison again, and I've been there before, and I'm just wondering, is there an advantage to going to a school I haven't been at, just to get me experience with some other teachers? And
There certainly could be. I said there certainly could be. We essentially gave all elementaries to people who were able to go to those events. I'll be honest, I didn't spend as much time thinking school-specific as I know you're a very active participant. You were next on my list when I got to Grace McWayne.
Right, I think we looked at the prior year, but we didn't look at
Previous.
Right, yeah.
previous years, so.
Yeah, 'cause I've been at JBN.
I mean, like, for some of us.
Have you been at JBN?
yes, I don't think I've been to Louise White.
You could switch Craig and.
Sue's been to JBN, right? Sue,
Yeah,
have you done,
I'm
have you done
fine
Grace
going.
McWayne before? Would you
So
like
let's
to
do a
Yeah.
shift. Sue to Grace McWayne, Chris to Louise, Craig to JVN. I know.
Oh.
I had some good friends, I had some
I
good
know.
contacts.
See,
that
I'm
would make
fine
my
with
life a little
JVN.
easier to join, but that's okay.
But it's nice to shake it up, and I didn't look at the past, so. That's partly why we're talking about this tonight. It's a great time to shift things.
Just tell me where to go.
If you wanted a different assignment, if you feel like, hey, I'm not doing enough, or I'm doing too much, this is the time to speak up or speak to us later.
I don't do I'll take two. Oh, I have two, actually.
You do.
I do have two.
So where's Chris?
So Chris is going to be our Louise White, Craig shifting up to JVN, Sue's going to
So
Grace
Grace,
McWayne.
all right.
So it's like
It's closer to home.
Right.
Yes, I don't have to cross the river now.
Yeah.
Where's your friends work?
Stand your side of the river.
Do we have to approve the AP?
We don't have to approve them, but we do have to go back and approve 2-140.
Right.
Okay, yep.
Because that was my question. 2-230 and 2-140 AP1. Oh, that's again AP. So really,
Yeah.
there's only two policies on here that need approval.
Right, and one of them we're bringing back.
So, but we could, the communications to and from the board, no one had questions on, we could approve that tonight and then not bring it back.
Get something off the list. Yep.
Yeah, because then everything else would go away.
Except
The one that we're-
2-230.
Yeah. So I would entertain a motion to approve 2-140 as presented.
So
That was the
moved.
guidance for board member communications, including email.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Lowe, second by Meitzler. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, cleaned up that pass. All right, so that was all of our action items tonight. We do, after administrative and board comments, we do have closed session, but there is no action to be voted on after our closed session. So those of you in the audience who might want to stick around, there won't be anything exciting afterwards, but we'll go to comments first. Dr. Hitchens.
All right, a couple business items. First of all, the Batavia Foundation has a meeting Thursday where we're going to be approving an MOU, and I had wanted to bring it to you for your approval today, but somehow it fell off the agenda, so my apologies. But this is what Beefy will be looking at on Tuesday. You've seen it previously from me, but we'll go ahead and approve it in September. And just so you know, Holly is working on defining what is a partner organization, what is an affiliate organization, and really just outlining some of those and coming up with some more formal agreements to what the expectations are on both sides.
Lisa?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt,
Yeah,
but
no problem.
there's going to be a change to this.
Good thing we didn't vote on it.
Yeah, so
That's why we didn't vote on it. That's why it was on the agenda.
It was taken from the agenda. Good planning.
Okay, so I'll let you know what the change is, and we'll bring it back next month.
Did you have a question?
Yes, I have just a quick question. I have in contact the school, the bus transportation, and the city of Batavia. The reason is because now they changed the road for 25 on River Street. They decided to change River Street and Adams Street for my kids' elementary school go to that point.
Sure. We'll grab somebody to
Yeah,
chat with you in a minute.
Yeah, we'll send someone your way.
The next thing that I just wanted to remind people, a couple of exciting events. The Hall of Honor is coming up before our next meeting. John already talked about it, September 19th, and the Corn Boil is a huge community event.
Oh, yes.
You did? You are on the side of genius. I don't know, 7 for me at least.
I see you guys all have.
Yep, we're on there. There were only 2 spots left, so they're gonna get a
They just
couple
talked about-
for the price of 2.
I know, they just talked about that.
Then September 17th, the board, I did ask if we could have a meeting to discuss our goals on September 17th. September 17th, did I say that right? And most of you replied and said that was okay. We were thinking about moving it to.
I thought you said the 11th.
So I sent a follow-up email
Gotta read all your emails.
that we were going to have a special board meeting that night to vote on the BEA contract. We're not going to be quite ready on the 11th, so we'll just
Keeping it the 17th, right?
Yeah, so if it's okay to keep the board workshop where we set our goals on the 17th, and then the vote for the contract should be at the end of September at your regular meeting.
Okay.
That's all my business, and then just
I know,
for
she told
fun,
me she was making
if you're wondering, are these leftover boards from last year? No, they are not. They're from our student STEM summer camp that we had for girls. It was hosted,
awesome.
2 of our teachers taught it, Nikki Kitzmiller and Julie Allen, and it was at Hoover Wood, but they received lots of hands-on science experiences through many, many field trips, including, I know that their favorite was Fermilab. When they were setting up, when the teacher was setting up the board, she was saying that was their favorite. They went and they did some hands-on research, and they had to go and collect some bugs and study these bugs, and at the very beginning, only a few of the students were saying that they were going to actually go and collect the bugs, and within a few minutes, everybody was out hands-on. It was a great experience for all of those students, and then they worked on some research, and they put the boards together and presented it to each other and their parents at the end of the camp. So it was a highly successful camp. And I just wanted to highlight that that's what those boards are. Welcome back, everybody, and hope you have a great year.
Very cool. All right, comments tonight. We'll start down with Sue.
Just welcome back, everybody, and I wanted to thank Lisa, Dr. Hitchens, for letting me tag along on the first day of school. That was so much fun. John was there, and we had a great time going to all the different schools. We hit every school all day. It was fun. Big day. So that was it.
Sue, Chris?
I got nothing special. I'm just enjoying the chaos that is the beginning of the year.
Tina?
I don't have anything either.
Craig?
Thank you.
Erin?
I just want to say welcome back to the staff and the students, and a big welcome to Joe and to Craig. I think it's going to be a great addition, and it's going to be a great year, so welcome back.
Awesome. John?
Again, well, that's short.
That's why we were saving all of our time for you, John.
First of all, I wanted to congratulate the volleyball team. That's a great honor, especially the high grade point. Very, very nice. Glad everyone had a good start to the school year. I was talking to a number of admin, and they all said that it was a good start, good year, and we traveled around, so it was very good. Again, the emails that we received, and good and bad, just wanted to say that we do take them serious, and that we've talked about a couple of those already. I wanted to thank all the applicants for the opening of the school board, and I want to welcome Craig, and hopefully he enjoys the next 20 months, and then he can maybe start all over again. Again, as always, thank everybody here at RJAC. I just also want to say be careful around the buses and around the schools. Kids are back, and sometimes they're not always paying attention. And I did want to make a comment, and I know I'm going to be talking to the audience, is that if you remember the beginning of the board meeting and Craig was sworn in, it seemed like it was a novel of what he had to say compared to the president or the governor or a senator, which is only like about 2 sentences long for a non-paying job, but a good job. But it's just amazing that our politicians have that much time to spare just to add more wording for the Board of Education to just mumble and jumble their way onto an oath. So, but I wish you well. Thank you. Thank you. I'm done.
Are you sure?
Probably not.
All right, well, for sure, welcome, Craig. We're very excited to have you. We do have closed session tonight. I would entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session to discuss collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Gaspar, second by Locke. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, adjourn to closed session.
We move Toyatte to the other, and so then we can step down.